And Faux Faith NFA Gang. What's up, YouTube people? Shaggy the Writer coming at you live at my boy Rakeem's house. I don't mean to call you boy. That's kind of fucked up. NSFW content today because we are reading the Elanthropa articles. I'm going to delete that other one so we don't even have to tell people that this is take two. Hashtag take two. But basically, this is an article written. An article. My God, what is wrong with me today? This is a novel written by Cody Franklin, who is actually famous for the YouTube channel Alternate History Hub. So I'm probably going to be posting this on the Reddit page Alternate History after as well. Anyone returning from the thing just fine this time. So I'm going to start right up from the front of the book. We start with the beginning. For anyone who didn't see last time, here is a picture of the world that they are putting us in. That's pretty dope. We're in the Western Kiln. The rusted arm. What an absolute waste. Such a fine drink was now spilt onto the floor, mixing together with never-growing pool of blood from a Marian whore. Imagine that whiskey joining. That time and effort must have taken to reach perfection, brewed and bottled, then put into a crate and transported all the way south to the edge of civilization, simply to be ruined in such a callous manner. It was an expensive bottle. I'm certain the price matched the work. I was quite looking forward to enjoying such a handiwork, and yet instead, all of it's now in a puddle of glass and blood at my feet. Dumb bitch. I sit here in this booth, waiting for someday to settle the matter. Few patrons in the bar glance over, and those who do quickly turn back their drinks. An injured bar whore on this ferry is not a tragedy to warrant more than a few seconds of curiosity. She will just not stop shrieking. The shrieking mass is coiled up next to the table she clumsily knocked over. She's wailing like a banshee, and it's getting on my nerves. Her good hand is clutching them Reichmarks she stole from my pocket. She sat my hand in my lap, sipped her hand into my pocket, and then taking the money inside, thinking I wouldn't catch it. As she gripped the money, I in turn gripped the twig of her forearm and shattered that fucking thing in half. Bone is piercing out of flesh. Some red pulp is dripping onto wooden floor. Serves her right. She tried to get away and toppled everything over with her. The table, the drink, my patience. The dark cardinal red rivers flowing down her pale fair skin. I was very eager to get acquainted with that body before we made landfall. She seemed like a guilty coil, but a quality coil. Blonde, an abundance of curves and smooth, pearly skin. She had made some good life decisions in winter war. I figured she could have made a fine Aryan wife. Just my luck, the best-looking specimen tries to be a thief. Pity. I motioned for another drink and for somebody to take this whimpering mess away from me. Four girls scurry across the bar. One hands me a new bottle of liquor. The second places a mat over the pool of blood. And the last two drag away the sobbing bitch. It was a nice little display. One of the girls snatches my Reichmarks back from the bleeding bar whore's grasp and places the money firmly into my hands. As the rest leave the room, she gives a gracious bow, apologizes in a regretful tone for the inconvenience, and finally floats out of the room to leave me in peace. What was that for? A voice calmly says at the other end of the bar. I will pause right here to say I'm mad that I don't get the satisfaction of being right about this kid being a Nazi. But hey, this all Nazis.
I wanted him to be a fucking Nazi.
I don't want him to be a Nazi. He's just a nerdy German kid, okay? We'll just roll with it. Maybe it was his great grandpeoples was Nazis. I hate Nazis. I just lost my viewer by pausing. Fuck everybody. We diving in this shit. What was that for? A voice calmly says at the other end of the bar. I turn to face its owner. His slim figure is draped in an overcoat that flows down to his knees. On top of an already bulky coat is a shell of metal armored plates. They are golden, just like his features. Blonde hair slicked back with short trimmed beard to match. His youth of 20 years really contrasts with my own aging exterior. Even though we are only 10 years apart in age, I can't help but notice the difference. You saw what she did, Ulrich, I said, pointing to the mat which had been laid down to cover the blood. Had to protect my money. Ulrich makes his way across the bar toward me, setting his attention on the still sideways table. Problems is settled differently down here, I explained to him in a collective manner as we both propped the table back up. Oh, quite different in Germania, I guess, Ulrich hesitantly rationalizes as he joins me at the booth. His voice is laced with nervousness. I expect he'll be a little uneasy considering this is his first deployment down south. My brother has lived quite a life in the pristine capital of the Reich, a beautiful place of monuments, tall winding towers, and dense green forests. Sometimes I don't know the strength of this thing, I says, shifting my display to my left arm, which is now my arm. Drops of the girl's blood paint the side of my rusted mechanical limb. I probably should wipe that off. It's a common practice to put this artificial skin over such a thing, but I could just never bother. Fake skin never wrinkles. It stays in the same perfect condition forever, unlike the rest of me. I've already seen my skin age and wrinkle, even if it was just a bit. At least as the metal rusts, my body degeneration will be a uniform and balanced process. I take a nap and begin cleaning the blood off of my limb. I don't know why this arm is always the dominant one. Even 10 years after losing it, it thinks it's still in charge. Oh, if you don't think there could have been another way of handling that situation, Auric says while watching the cleaning display. Could you have stopped her and got some money back? She was just a little thing. I nod in aloof agreement while cleaning away the last bits of blood. It was the same dark crimson as Ulrich's uniform. Standard for an SS knight. The gold eagle and skull pinned to his chest shines against the lap above us. I wouldn't get caught up on it already. It's not like it's that much of a loss, I reason. Not a pacifist, sure, I joke, pointing to his uniform. The knighthood maintains cultural integrity, Ulrich explains, his hands clenched together as his body. We aren't some kind of peace organization. So getting caught up on a bar whore is maintaining culture. I laughed, looking around the dim room. Not one of the occupants was looking back at us. The bartender was cleaning one of his glasses, having a quiet conversation with a man in gray uniform. None pay mind to me or my brother much. Ulrich's eyes look on the last drops of blood I am wiping from my limb. As if he has something to say, but instead simply lets out a deep breath, unclenches his hands and orders another drink. The knighthood is about protecting the tribe, he explains. The only way to protect the tribe is to make sure we aren't attacked by another tribe, I state. There are so many ways to protect a tribe, Ansel, Ulrich lectures, his eyes narrowing, such as respecting your fellow Aryans. I chuckle to myself, almost spitting up my drink. Ulrich wrinkles his brow at me with an expression of annoyance. Are you saying that I should have respected that whore just because she's an Aryan? I choke out through spats of laughter. The tribe that fights amongst itself is bound to collapse, he concludes. We are not going to fight some great war just because I broke some thief's arm, I say. If anything, you should be lecturing her for stealing. Ulrich reaches down into his seat. His hand loosely grips the handle of his pint. That woman was still an Aryan. That woman was still a thief, I say, taking a large gulp from my new whiskey. We sat by a small window that overlooks the sea. A faint rumble permeates the waves and splashes against the ferry. It always surprises me just how loud the sea is. 1,000 little movements working in sync to create that recognizable hum. It's a rhythm and tune that the show of the slow turn of the ship's engine. This ferry isn't larger than the ships at the kiln, but it's still impressive for a war vessel. I'm surprised at how it can even stay afloat. It doesn't need wheels, treads, or magnets to grip onto the water. That is, by all means, a chunk of metal floating on a liquid surface. Mechanical feet were always something inherently genetic to the European. For its remarkable size, there is barely a soul on this ferry. The only travelers I see are a standard bunch of sailors on the way south to the kiln. Boys strut across the bar, but even they are few and far between. Granted, that is probably because of me. The Reich officially outlaws prostitution, but down south they turn a blind eye. The sailors had to be kept happy somehow in this remote edge of civilization. I figure that if this region were run with the moral code of Germania up north, then no sailors would want to ship cargo. In the summer months when the heat is an issue, hell, I guarantee half the ships would be abandoned and never leave port. This time of year, the pay is doubled, eyes turned away, and sailors are kept happy with women before they embark on their long journeys ahead. There's a I can still make out on the horizon the towers of Maria peeking out from behind a cloud of dust and smoke. Unlike the capital of Germania or the city of London, there was no real organized design to Maria. The streets are narrow and wide after a long silence. I look at him, his posture defeated and his head held low, the armor swallowing up his skinny figure. You won't mess up, I comfort him, lowering my pint glass. Our vessel is just shipping containers to some eagle's nest down south, and if we run into enemy vessels, our ship will blast them before we even need help. Oh boy. But I need to call in a drop, Ulrich sputters out. You won't need to, I cut in. Oh, all right, I'm just saying if we need to, if we're not in a lot of danger. You're nervous, I gets it, I explain. If we really needs it, I'll let you know, but only when I let you know. Every ship that goes out into the kiln is Reich property. That means that if a ship comes under attack by scavengers and is about to go down, then the last-ditch effort is called in. An Agia drop An orbital strike, which drops a hunk of metal crashing down onto the enemy like a meteor. And even though the Reich doesn't expand across Africa, it still expands into space. Space is more useful anyway. Only one kind of poison is really trusted to use the egg drops responsibly. An SS Knight. Guess the Reich leaders don't have much faith in their own soldiers. I don't really blame them considering the crewmen I've ran into over the years. Ulrich being dubbed newly a knight is taking his first maiden voyage into a new life. Calling in these drops to protect the ships. That's why I invited my skittish brother to join my ship, so he can have quality first experience. Well, that and it's the law. Why do you not want me to call in a drop? Ulrich asked, his face toying in confusion. I look out the small window toward the swirling waves. My own battered reflection peers back at me, sullen eyes, a few scars across my face, a shaggy beard. Look at ass. I love your beard, bro.
I look crazy. That them damn girl told me yesterday I look like fucking a black Santa Claus. Oh, what the fuck, yo?
My God, that's funny as hell. Oh shit. Oh wow. Apologies that we are unable to connect toward the spoiling waves. My own battered reflection peers back at me. Yes, he's gotta be it. It's cowardly, I say in a dull, dismissive tone, taking another drink. Ulrich points himself at the sound, confounded at what he just heard. Cowardly, he repeats in astonishment. How is a weapon designed to save the lives of your men cowardly? His voice lines with a twinge of hysteria. I keep myself composed, looking back toward the window of my own battered face. Some men don't trust. Nah, my men don't need some orbital blast to save them, I say in my hushed tone. We have all the weapons we need on this ship. I prefer you to get close to the enemy. This isn't about what you prefer, Ulrich explains. It's policy by the Reich, and that needs to be on ship no matter what, just in case. And I can disagree with Reich policies, I argue back in a calm demeanor. Things, this seems to get Ulrich even more infuriated. I'm still allowing a knight to come onto the ship. It's just we won't really need your services. Why did I even come on this journey with you, then, if I can't do anything? He asked, his eyes wide. Think of it like an introduction into the life of the kiln. You'll learn how things are done. I've learned for 4 years in school, Ansel, Ulrich complains, his eyes lowered toward his half-empty pint. They are two different beasts, I say, taking another swig. You think I knew anything about the kiln until I joined the military? Every man thinks he knows everything at your age until they don't. Jokingly, I flex my metallic arm. My mind flashes back to an earlier time. I was Ulrich's age, and it too was my first time in the kiln. Yet my reason for arriving was far different. Eagle's Nest number 15 had been invaded by scavengers. A gun was placed in my hand, and I was told to storm those large towers. Take back the nest, they said, and I followed. Took shrapnel to the torso. Everything went black. Within a day, though, I was back in the fight with a new mechanical arm and able to avenge that limb along with those innocent civilians murdered. Wasted many revolver rounds firing into surrendering scavengers' skulls. Soft female voice rings out across the bar from speakers in the ceiling.
Attention all passengers, we shall be arriving in the Edge at 10 minutes. If you have not done so, get your belongings and prepare to disembark the ferry when the time comes.
I lift myself up with a heavy grunt. With my metallic limbs as the mechanisms inside spin to support my weight. Ulrich suddenly stands up alongside me. His face is still sullen with disappointment. No matter how much reading you do, I reason to him, pointing a hand on his shoulder. There is nothing that really prepares a man to life in the kiln other than being in the kiln.
I know,
He says with a trailing voice.
I was just expecting to do something.
As you will eventually. Just for now, be appreciative that you get a crash course on how things are done here. We pick up the small duffel bags we brought along on our journey. There wasn't much that I packed. Anything of particular use up north was pointless down south. Most of my gear, minus my armor, which I was already wearing, was on my ship anyway. Ulrich and I stand on the side of the ferry, rooting onto the railing overlooking the sea. This water always had a strange pungent smell to it. Smells of dead fish, but there hasn't been a single fish in the sea for centuries. With every movement of each wave, the foul odor splashes against the ship. The occupants of the boat go about their business, preparing to dock. Some wear metal-plated armor, just like my brother and I. Others wear simple gray uniforms. Ulrich himself, stiff as a board, cautious to stay out of the way of everybody. In the distance, I can see a large orange cloud wafting over the horizon. It looks like a monster slowly retreating and revealing its presence. The fog clashing with the teal rippling waves. We are getting close to the edge.
What is that?
Ulrich asks, pointing to the orange fog. That, Ulrich, I explain in a matter-of-fact manner. That